How's it going, everybody? This week on the AVB Podcast, it was my pleasure to be able to head out to the little town of Essex, Ontario, and sit down with a world-renowned painter, Mr. Ron Suchiu. If you do not follow the world of painting, you may not have heard Mr. Suchiu's name, but if you do, you definitely have. This guy's got paintings featuring everybody from Sting to George Lucas, to Jimi Hendrix, as you'll hear about in the interview. He's got paintings that hang up at Windsor Castle and at the Vatican, and he's got an incredible story. Let's get to it. Well, my guest today is a little unusual. As you notice, we're not in our regular studio, and this time we went somewhere very, very pretty. My guest today is Mr. Ron Suchiu. Ron, how's it going today?
Good, really good.
Good. If you don't already know Ron's work, you should definitely pay more attention because you've been pretty much everywhere. But Ron is a very well-known painter in the area, has done some incredible work that I'm sure in passing, at least, my audience has seen. Ron, the way we normally do these interviews is we start from the very beginning. I want to know about your early years. Were you born and raised in this area, or what?
Yeah, I was born and raised on Stewart Boulevard in LaSalle, and we were actually one of the very first houses on that street. That's how far back we go, just after Noah built the ark. But yeah, then I left here Colleen and I left here in 1976, and we went to Toronto, and I basically studied all my creative stuff through the University of Hard Knocks. There's phenomenal competition up in Toronto, so it really gives you a really good education about, marketing and everything.
Let me go back a little bit. So 76, you and Colleen's your wife?
Yeah, Colleen's my wife, yeah.
So you and Colleen headed up to Toronto. Give me a little bit before that. Growing up in LaSalle, were your parents artists?
No, actually, and that's a good point to make. I only had art for one term in school, and they kicked me out of the class because I was back in high school. I was the rebel, the hippie. Right?
Okay.
And I did well in school. There was no, I didn't seem to suffer through it too badly. The principal seemed to hate me for whatever reason, but yeah. So and I did. They wanted me to do some stuff in perspective, and I understood my art a little bit too well. I was one of those idiot students that knew way too much,
right? And
the teachers unfortunately knew way too little,
right? And
it became a real conflict for me, and I ended up getting kicked out my last term, and I really did fail my only term.
Really?
Yeah.
So you've got the classic artist story?
Yeah. So I designed a lot of stuff for the school. I designed the actual logo for the school and everything else. So
what school was that?
That was Somerset Secondary School.
Okay.
Before it was that, it was actually, we were going to Amherstburg 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 6 o'clock. We were sharing a school at the time.
Out in Amherstburg from LaSalle?
Wow.
Yeah. So I grew up in LaSalle, River Canard area. That's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, because I was very good at my art, and my portfolio was very, very strong, even in school, the principal said you have to pass them. And that's the only way I passed my art is by having him in.
So so even though you failed the class, art was already a major part of your life.
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was so big, as a matter of fact, after we had been gone for, I think, 19 years, I called, we lost my school records, and I called the school, and the secretary knew who I was, and she said, "Are you still doing art?" I said, "Well, how are you coming up with that?
Right.
How would you even know my name?" She said, "Well, your art is all through the offices." It was all framed through the office. Well, my portfolio went missing. I never did find it. And the joke was, I think it was 19 years, when we came back from Toronto, I actually wrote up a full kind of performance. It was actually an invoice for leasing my art for the last 19 years. Because, the principal literally took my portfolio.
That's funny.
So I think the actual lease was like $253,000, but I never sent it in.
Right.
It was too chicken. I probably should have done it. It would have been a lot of fun.
So wait a second. It's taking me a minute because I'm a little slow on the uptake. So what you're saying, like the art that was on your wall was all the stuff that they had ripped out of your portfolio.
Well, they took my whole portfolio. At the end of the year, I had no portfolio to prove that I did anything. Yeah, and all it was, I got kicked out because I mean, back then we were innocents, right?
Yeah.
And that was the early days of the hippie movement and stuff like that. So they wanted to do perspective, and I did my name, Ronald Suchiu, out in the desert, these monolithic stone structure, right?
Right.
And I had these, remember the two little feet sticking up and 2 feet sticking down?
Right.
I had that sitting at the edge of the thing, and everybody in the class was laughing at my painting, thinking it was the biggest joke in the world, because I do hide. Even then, I hide. To this day, I hide stuff all through my paintings.
Yeah,
you know?
That's one of the things I love about your work. And I mean, we're going to get to that for sure. But like, that is one of the things that I love about your work. Your work doesn't just have like your work has a way of grabbing you initially. That's like, oh, that's really great. And then if you spend more than 10 seconds looking at it, you start discovering these little pieces to it. Is that's always been a part of what you did?
Pretty well. I thought. And you've seen them in the old, even in the Renaissance days in the 1800s, where people were doing pictures that you thought were one thing and really weren't. I don't go quite that far with it. I like to put stuff where it's magically invisible to you. And,
right.
You know, and it's funny because I'm writing my book right now, and people chuckled at it when they first saw it. It's a big art book, and it's going to have all of my history and everything. And it's called The Wizard of Art. And the reason I did that is because I started to realize that I can do things in my art that come so close to what people believe to be real magic.
Right.
Like I could do something where, well, there's a painting in here that you're 10 feet away from a nude woman. You don't see this happening.
Right.
You actually see this vast desert scene with these beautiful rock formations and everything else, but you're actually within a woman's dream. It's called The Evolution of a Dream.
Okay.
And the painting actually...
I was just looking at that.
Well,
I was just looking at that.
You probably didn't notice there's a nude woman sleeping in that painting, and she's the prominent piece of the painting. Now, for me to say that's the actual feature of the painting, but you could look at it for 2 hours and not see that woman. So I'm borderline on the magic, and I really do believe that. Actually, I did one piece where I did the magic bus called Further, and I had Jimmy Morrison, I had Jimi Hendrix, and stuff. And I started thinking, these guys are calling me. There was a reason. There's a story to the magic bus. The magic bus was the Timothy Leary and Ken Kesey, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They created the hippie movement by taking this bus from San Francisco to New York and back again. Right. And even created psychedelia and psychedelic paint job on their bus. That all came from them. And even tie-dye and dip-dye.
Was all just from those guys?
Those guys. Yeah,
wow.
Wackos. Really crazy people. They were on the trip. It was called the electric Kool-Aid acid test, which was an LSD thing. LSD was legal at the time, and Ken Kesey wanted to test it on creative people. Yeah,
there's you start going into some of the science behind a lot of that, like some of the studies that went into it, like because there's connected with like dolphin psychology studies that were connected to some of this stuff too. It's crazy. Were you into all that stuff like as a kid?
No, I never actually. I always laugh because I always hear Bill Clinton talk when I say I've had 2 puffs of marijuana. The difference between him and me is I inhaled.
You inhaled.
But when I inhaled, I didn't like it. I don't like. I drink only I'll drink Boone's Farm strawberry wine just because I love the taste of it.
Right.
On ice. I'm not after anything to get a buzz because I don't want my mind to have a buzz.
Right.
But anyway, it goes back to all that. When you see the paintings and even in the Aykroyd piece here, when I do a painting, I don't think I was meant to be just a painter. I'm meant to be a storyteller.
Right.
And I'm going to use the term for the very first time on camera because I'm doing a movie right now called, as the art director, called Your Wildest Dreams. And in that, we're going to announce that I'm actually a movie maker, but I'm a one-frame movie maker. So you have to read it, just like you have to read into a movie, you have to read into my piece. You can't. Okay. You can't get the full gist of what's going on unless you want to really try and search out the story, And I really always thought that if I could get really good at being a storyteller, then that would take people further into...
That's so interesting to me because, that's for art across the board for me, so we talked to a lot of musicians, a few painters, nobody up till now, up to your level, of course, but, artists at different levels, at different genres, but also, like, we take a real look at, like, working art. And the thing that impresses me so much about just this little bit of the conversation that we've had right now is the idea that you take all of these pieces and you do storytelling and then add these little bits of like these little pieces of magic, as you put it, into your painting. It's funny because I can point to your work as the example of what I think most artists are trying to achieve in just about any genre. Does that make...
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I always said that there's a point in time... Here, I worked with George Lucas. When George Lucas called for a conversation, I was in tears. I mean, he didn't know that. He's a very humble person, and he's probably just as bad as I am at that point.
Right.
I graduated the highest grade of my craft as far as I was concerned. I became the gold medal artist that day.
Right.
Well, what was really funny is at the same time I had William Shatner in my other hand. So, but William Shatner, when I got, it was for the Jane Goodall Institute, and when I was working with William Shatner, I wasn't having fun with it. I actually backed out on the deal.
Okay.
But here I'm sitting there as an artist in Windsor area, and I've got Star Wars in one hand, I got Star Trek in another, fully endorsed by the people of people. And when you got George Lucas, the creator, and he's on the phone with you, and then I said, George, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to tell a story about a homecoming. Ooh, what's that all about? And I said, I'm just going to do you on the planet of Naboo, because where does George Lucas go when he's not here on Earth?
Right.
And I said, you're going to go out and you're going to try and create the next Lucas whatever. And, this is a conversation. And he's kind of, that's interesting. I said, he's very quiet. And I said, but I want to have a homecoming at your cottage on the planet of Naboo. So when you see the painting, you're actually seeing Naboo, but you're not seeing it where you normally see it in the movie. I've taken you across the gully to look back at the city. And here's George sitting at his beautiful desk. Well, in that painting, there's 43 characters. It was a homecoming of all of his ideas.
Right.
So the story is, it's called The Force of Inspiration. When he's sitting holding Yoda up and looking at Yoda, and you see it that in his eyes, that point of eureka.
Yeah.
There's blank paper in front of him on the desk. There's a little 20-cent pencil, and it's eureka. And what is the eureka all about? Well, he's looking into himself. Yoda, and I did ask George, I said, George, I got to ask you this little high school question.
Yeah.
What is it, Ron? I said, well, is Yoda your alter ego? And he said, because I said, I've noticed it everywhere. And I said, it makes sense. You could see the future. You've got good qualities. I think George has really excellent qualities. And, virtues and values. And he says, well, it didn't really start off that way, but yes, it actually became that. So here I hit the nail on the head as far as I was concerned. He's not looking up at Yoda. He's looking inside George Lucas. So that's how that whole story starts out. And then you got all of these little creatures and animals and, all around you. And the one thing is, the only thing I thought he would reject was, I've done art directing for different productions and that. The Ewok in there. An Ewok is a furry animal, so a brown Ewok has brown legs. Well, my Ewok has a black and white face and gray and black stripes, and that was a dog that we just had lost, Larry, a little Shih Tzu. So, I put him in there as a dedication, and he's got a squirrel skull on top of his head, but the Ewok, he should have rejected it because it was just wrong. Just all wrong.
But he's still loved with it.
Oh, yeah.
Did you tell him the story? Did you tell him what it was?
No, actually I didn't.
I would love to hear his response to that. Because immediately, the first thing that I wondered, as soon as you said you had this conversation, is almost coming back to my first question that led into that is, so my question to you about being an artist, because you've spoken and dealt with so many of these high-level names, high-level artists, do you find that almost across the board? Like, do you find that the people that you deal with are storytellers or are really looking to say something?
To say something. I think that's it. I might insult a few artists right now because we're working on a company called artugly.com, which is actually a company that engulfs everything you have to do to be an artist, marketing and personality and branding and what I found was 1 out of 1,000 artists have any energy towards it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
I like doing what I do, man.
And I pay for my food by drawing a little picture on a napkin. Well, okay, that's good. But an art, as far as a craft, is it not the highest? It's one of the highest crafts in the world. I mean, it's a high level craft. To be an artist means that we're taking culture from here to there. 200 years from now, it's the artist that took us, and that became that dash in between, 2018 and whatever, 2218. Our culture was brought forward by what an artist did, whether you be a writer or songwriter. It's all, how do you know the personality of the world? Mm-hmm. Well, you know it through artists. So, but I find that, and 1 out of 10,000 succeed. Like my art has gone to 60 countries now. Right. It's not something to be boasty about. It's just something that we've done. We've done it.
I don't know. I think it's worth being a little boasty about.
I guess. Well, I think what I like to boast about is I'm in Windsor Castle. I'm in the Vatican, which I'm not religious. Yeah,
really?
I'm not, and I'm in the Vatican.
Which one of your pieces in the Vatican?
The Assumption Church from. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And 2 presidents. President Mandela sent me a letter, about my art, and the Queen, and those things. Yeah, you start name dropping. To me, those are legendary. These are people that can't be replaced. And 2 of the prime ministers have called me national treasure, and that's why I don't have it on my shirt. But normally you'll see it says national treasure on my shirt. That's my, how you go to war, you wear a medal. Why you wear a national treasure on my shirt? Just because 2 of our prime ministers called me national treasure.
Okay. So I need to figure out more of your story here. Yeah, so you grew up here in the area in LaSalle. You're an arty kid. Mom and dad. You said mom and dad are artists,
not
right?
At all.
So,
as a matter of fact, I was born in the wrong family. I was really like Dylan always. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother died when I was 21, but she was my soulmate. I've carried on with her for my whole life to understand life.
Right.
She gave me some really good stuff, but it was just basically what is good and bad and right and wrong. That's all she taught me, and that's all I really needed. There's no gray areas between good and bad. Mm-hmm. To me. You're lying or you're not lying.
Right.
You're Trump or you're not. No.
Oh boy. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Hey, I don't know what this goes. You might want to beat that sucker up.
We're artists. I think everybody knows where we stand.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I lost where I was.
No. Growing up in the wrong family.
Yeah. So I think actually because I grew up in the wrong family, I actually learned to raise myself. I was raising myself at 6 years old or something. I really was a left alone child. I wasn't thrown out in the streets. I had a house. Yep. But I had to learn that I can't go to school with wrinkled clothes because I get bullied. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I had to learn how to iron when I was 6, and you know what I mean, stuff like that. But as I went along, I think it was just basically by being left alone that I became extremely visually enhanced. As far as I have kind of a photographic memory.
You learned to pay attention to what was around you because it wasn't handed to you.
No, it's right, and I think I developed the fact that when I look at something, people catch me doing this. If I'm at a dinner, I'll be sitting there and I close one eye a lot of times, and I start to do this kind of perspective thing. I don't know, and it's been just a natural thing. And I think that happened to me when I was younger. Yeah. Watch nothing beat. A lot of people see my clouds and love my skies. Yeah. I would lay out, we had about 8 acres in LaSalle, and I would lay out in that soft grass and by myself, and I'd stare up at the skies. Basically the clouds moving, images changing. And it really, it made me feel like I was actually falling forward into it. Okay. You know what I mean? Yep. And I think that's kind of some of the earliest stages of what cause the artist to grow.
How old were you when you met Colleen?
24.
So early on?
Oh, no, 21. It was the year my mother died. She met her once. Yeah.
Wow.
A week before.
And, okay, so your mom dies,
Yeah.
you meet Colleen, and not long after you decide to take off to Toronto?
Yeah, we were in Toronto in 76. We moved to Toronto. Yeah.
So what was the catalyst to get you going?
Well, the art was always there. I think that what it did for me, I was in retail at the time. I was a very young manager of a clothing store, a shoe store at the time, Benita Shoes. Mm-hmm. And that's how we got to Toronto. And Colleen was, I think, involved with the same, like we were both in retail. But I always had, I think by being left alone, I had the fact that when I did art, I'm not trying to boast, but I was almost as good then as I am today.
Right.
Like I started off by being what I would call a phenomenal artist today. If they walk in at 20-some years old, and I think as soon as I did it for people or whatever I drew or painted or whatever, the affirmation I got was just something I never received by anything in any other way. Was there ever a time when you thought that it was a waste of time?
Like, was there ever a time when you looked at it as just you're stupid? Like, no, you were just this was what you are and what you do.
I am.
Yeah,
I am, and I've done believe me, I've managed companies. Like I said, I've done work with TV. And I'm doing an art direction for a TV movie now. And those things I knew I always had to pay my dues. I learned that in Toronto. The University of Hard Knocks says you're an artist in Toronto or a manager or a business operator in Toronto. What I loved about Toronto was and I apologize for this, guys, everybody from Windsor area, we get lazy down here because we don't have enough competition. And that competition keeps you honest.
Right.
And I don't find the honesty level with dealing with people in business here as high as I did in Toronto. Because in Toronto,
that's really interesting. That's a really interesting perspective. Keep talking to me about this.
Well, I'll tell you, we were actually, Colleen and I ended up, we were really lucky. We became the 13th Motorola dealer in cellular phones. We were in the first year of cellular phones.
Yeah.
But by the time that we went through 1 year, if you weren't really good and honest and fair and did everything perfect, you had 10 people 2 blocks away that are going to take your business away.
Right.
So the only thing that we've ever done, and even here now, like this weekend coming up, we have this special event where I give my art away to my clients.
Yeah.
The reason I do that is because I honor them with protecting me and helping me.
Yeah.
And I found that if I can do everything I can do to make somebody's life a little bit better, and Toronto taught me this, and it seems weird because Toronto could be, if you go in with the wrong attitude, in a metropolis like that, in New York, I love New York for business.
Right.
If you go in there with the wrong attitude, man, you're just going to get stomped.
And what's the wrong attitude?
Being anything but real. If you're real in every respect, everybody will respect you.
Yeah.
You can't be not respected. I played with Trump a while ago. He can only go so far. It's got to explode. You can't do that forever.
Yeah, I don't know. One would say, as far as he's gone, is pretty damn far.
It doesn't matter. It's still going to.
True enough.
Okay,
yeah,
but anyway, to make it real light, 20 years from now, he's going to be known as the worst president ever.
Right.
That's his legacy. I don't want that as my legacy. I don't want. I actually believe in my heart, and I'm not accustomed to boasting. I've been taught not to.
Yeah.
That I'm one of the best artists I've ever known to exist, and that's ridiculous to say to me.
But
I know what's here, and I know how much people love it. That's my first motorcycle.
Yeah.
Now people want motorcycle paintings from me. If they knew what was inside here. This is amateur.
Yeah.
So how can I have something that looks so world class to people
and still be dissatisfied?
Know in my soul that I'm amateur, because that is my soul.
That makes so much sense. And you know what? And I do like what you just said there, is that you don't normally boast, but I'm going to say this thing that sounds ridiculous, because I think it's funny because that it almost comes back to a question I was about to ask you. There's this thing that's called imposter syndrome. We talked about it early on the podcast, like episode 7. We're now into like episode 100 and something.
Okay.
So, and I was talking about it with Tom from Fog, and his question to me was like, artists feel like that? Like, I thought that was just me because it was a business owner thing. Yeah. And it's the imposter syndrome thing kind of like it runs this gamut. And maybe I'm wrong, but I get a feeling like you never had that. Do you know what imposter syndrome is when I refer to it?
I might have called it fraud syndrome.
Okay.
Because to be really good at a trade, I understand it now, where there was a time when I felt like that.
Yeah.
That it was like, I'm fooling you.
Yeah.
Is this what you're getting at?
Yeah. Like you're just waiting for the world to figure out you're full of shit.
Yeah. And I saw that some writers did it, and it was some movie or something. I thought, man, you nailed it. But the thing is, yes, you do. And then
so you did have it too?
I had it until I started to hear too many people, and this is really bothers me, I'm sorry. Too many people say, I do it only for the art.
Yeah.
If you do it only for the art, you're the most selfish person I know. If you do it for you because you just want to do the art, but you're really, really good at it, you better be doing it for them.
Yeah.
Because that's the wealth, and that's the richness, and that's what you're actually trying to get out of your soul. Your soul is to find bliss. You don't find bliss by hogging everything for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
no, it's funny because you're really sort of confirming something that I've struggled with for a long time. So like my entire life I've been, artist kid, but again, family not really, artsy, not supportive, but but all that.
Don't expect it to go anywhere.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Like it's and the thing is, it was always like, oh no, you like my parents growing up, my parents said over and over again, like, my kid's never, if he's ever going to be in a factory, it's because he's running it, da-da-da-da. And then the second I turned 18, the first thing they said was go work in a factory. That kind of thing, right? But my entire life as I've messed around with stuff, and I've varied experiences. I use art as a very, very broad term. But like everything from, security to poker to, every time something came in front of me that seemed even just a little bit interesting, like as a little way to sort of find out about people a little more,
right.
I grabbed onto it, but I was never satisfied unless whatever I grabbed onto turned $1. I didn't care if it made a profit. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to know that somebody was willing to reach in their pocket and pull out money and hand it to me for the thing that I was doing. Because if they weren't going to do that, then what I was doing wasn't worth a shit. Is that kind of...
Well, we had a gallery at Colasantes, and I mean, we've been going for almost 30 years here, and the only time we've ever been stolen from, like we had 26.
Other than your portfolio.
Yeah. Well, and my first wife. But, they were interviewing me one time and said. It was on radio, I think, and he said, "Wow," he said, 26 pieces of art they got from you. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Man, you must be proud of that." I said, "I didn't get it." He says, "Well, you got to be proud if they're going to steal 26 pieces of art." I said, "I'd be a lot prouder if they were going to pay
for it." Yeah,
because when you're stealing it, it's just like there's no value to that.
That's crazy. Did you ever get any of that?
No, we never
found any of that back.
No, we know basically who it was.
Yeah,
but they were really smart enough to get away with it. Yeah.
And that's the only time you've had to deal with that kind of thing?
Yeah, we've had a phenomenal 28 years, I guess. I started here in 89. It's 29 years this year. We have collectors that were not even born yet when we started to. I mean, I've watched, and this is one thing with Suchiu art, and we use the term Suchiu art. I'm Ron. I'm Ron to you, and I'm Ron to anybody I'm sitting with. And then you got Suchiu out there. You got Suchiu, this really demanding boss. He's a real son of a bitch as far as I'm concerned, because he's a perfectionist idiot.
Yeah. And
when Suchiu's working, then you kind of quiver by that. But God, I lost my train of thought again. This brain is
exactly right. No, you were sort of explaining, and see, I did the same thing because I started thinking about questions ahead of time. You know what? Maybe we'll just do it. Do it this way for me. Along your so you went to Toronto. While you were in Toronto, you're doing retail.
And art.
And art.
Oh yeah, I always did art.
Okay, so art was always like a side gig for you through the whole time.
And it bothered me a lot because it's and I use this term quite often is a lawyer doesn't study to become an artist just in case he fails as a lawyer.
Right.
Right. But is that okay with this?
Yeah, you know what? We'll close it just in case.
You might want to start.
Because if they're working, if it's going to be. And then this is an easy cut later. So mark the time down. You see the time in the bottom corner?
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I never had a doubt. So when I was in Toronto, I was producing paintings, and we just produced some prints with the earliest paintings. They're called the early years. We did that last year. Okay. And some of the paintings there were fine for production and stuff, and aviation stuff. But we were at the time trying to do the wrong stuff. And again, like you could be born in the wrong family, but you could also go to the wrong job. And that's probably 95.99, or 99.999% of the time people end up in the wrong job. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of successful people that love their job. But when you compare that to how many people are just there. Yeah. And that's one thing that I was a rebel in school. I think I taught myself to be that. I taught myself that I don't want to go that way. I want to go my way. Yeah. And, I was very, very careful with that. And then when I got to Toronto, I think what I was learning business for really was that I knew the fact that as an artist, you could starve to death. Yeah. I mean, 999 out of 1,000 do. If you're going to just be an artist, you're not going very far. Yep. I mean, we've sold literally millions of dollars with art. It still doesn't make me rich. Right. Because it's that hard of a business. Yeah. It's hard to comprehend. If you did a mural and you got paid $20,000, that sounds really important. But you only got one mural this year. The entire year. The last 3 years. Right. Yeah. So even this weekend, everybody's blown away by me having 1,500 people show up, But that's your whole year. It's not your whole year, but a quarter of it. Yeah. And then I got to start thinking of what's going to happen next. Yeah. Right? And you always got to reinvent it. You always got to come up with something new, or else they stop coming, right? Yeah, so I always said, and with Art Oogly, our business is, our slogan is we love to help artists succeed. When you do that, all of a sudden you realize, well, there's so few that are going to even succeed just because of their own, they sabotage themselves by it. And another thing is, being an artist is just not a good way of being lazy. No. Because a lot of people think by doodling and stuff like that, they're being an artist, and they want to say they're an artist, but they're actually just trying to be lazy. Right. I hate to say it like that. No, you're 100%. This is something that is like, and I don't know how to say this, because I've been trying to find a way to come around to this one story that I want to tell you. And this might be the most natural way, but this idea of like helping other artists and connecting with other artists, it's been important to you for a long time, right? Oh, absolutely. So let me tell you a story that I guarantee you don't remember, but has been so important to me. Like literally, I'm about to tear up as I'm telling this. Oh. So the very first thing I ever did as like an artist is I grabbed my wife now and girlfriend at the time worked 3 jobs forever to buy me a medium format Mamiya RB67 camera. Right. And I had my own, like my 35 millimeter camera that I picked up through college and stuff. And I was going to go out and do my first trip, and I went across Canada with a couple of buddies, and we did a bunch of photos and stuff. And when I came back, I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't come from a family that taught you how to. I didn't know where any of this. The internet didn't exist, right? I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. The only thing that I knew about art at all. So this was about this is back in '99, and I came over and sat down with you. And where were we at this? This is in LaSalle. Oh, at the store? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is the store in LaSalle. Sorry, I thought when I said Zayers that you would know right away. Yeah. But so this is at the store in LaSalle. I came in, and it was Colleen that I initially met. Okay. And I explained to her what I was doing, and that I was looking for frames and stuff. And I'm not even kidding you. And this is the part that it breaks my heart and absolutely says everything in the world that I want people to know about you. Came in, I showed you my work. You talked to me for about an hour about the photography, about art, about
I can't even remember 90% of the conversation, but I know damn well that 90% of who I am is based around this conversation and the conversation I had with Art Bell on as well.
Oh, yeah.
Or not, sorry, Spark Bell.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But in that conversation, I was coming looking for frames. And the first thing you said to me was, don't get your frames done here.
Oh. Well, I wouldn't say that. No.
But you said to me as a kid at the time, you said, don't get your frames down here. You're going to blow your budget. Go get something done. Go put them up on the walls and get them sold.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, no problem. And I left and I ignored you. And I went somewhere else and I spent a ton of money.
Oh.
And I didn't sell one of those fucking things because I couldn't sell any of the work that I had because the frames were too expensive. And nobody knows it. And they're just, they're good pictures. Like one of those pictures is still up on my wall. But everything you said to me was dead right. Yeah. Dead right.
Honesty, again, there's no gray area between being dishonest and honest.
Yeah.
Honesty, I think, when somebody says they're honest, I know they're lying. Because if I said I was honest, I know I'd be lying.
Because if I'm being honest, I don't need to tell you.
But it's not only that, it's like, we trip. This world, as a human, we trip because you'll go along and do these jeans make my ass look fat, right?
Right.
No,
your ass makes your ass look fat. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is there's those areas that you do have to get into it. I can't stand it. Honest to God, I can't stand it when I have to do something like that. And it's really bad. I mean, I get relatives. Oh, my niece is becoming an artist, and it's like, and this is really horrible. Sometimes I can't respond back.
Right.
Because
there's nothing you can say is either complete bullshit or it's just cruel.
Exactly. So if I'm going to honor myself, I would much rather not say what I have to say.
Yeah.
I did that with I won't mention his name, but he was a very good artist here, and he was just coming on, but he was coming on strong. His talent was showing fast. Yeah. And that's a good natural art. And he said we were at an art show, and he said, "Would you do me a favor, just critique my work?" And I said, "No, I don't want to do that." No. Well, anyway, and I ended up, I had already bought an original off him. Right. So I don't just use my own art. I like other art, so I bought this clown picture, and it's not Paul Murray, by the way. Right. It was a clown picture I bought from somebody else, and I said, "No, I don't want to do that." And he said, "Well, please. I mean, I respect you more than anybody in this whole area." I said, "Look, I'll take a look at it. I'll give you tips, but I'm not going to critique your work." Right. Well, I gave him about 4 or 5 tips, and he got so offended by me, he never spoke to me again. Ever spoke to me again.
Really?
As a matter of fact, when people spoke my name, I've had that happen a few times. And I won't. Like, there's just a time you don't
get so much.
But it's one professional thing envy, right?
But it's one thing if you come up to me and just start running your mouth. Like, I didn't ask you to chirp. I don't care, whatever. Yeah. But if I come to you and say, like, can you, look at this and tell me what you think? And especially if you phrase it with, like, this isn't something I really want to do. Yeah. Then, I mean, if you take that out of context, that shit's on you.
Yeah. Like, well, it is, but that doesn't matter. It still makes you feel bad.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah,
you can't be everything. And I look at, in 1989, we started this thing here in this area. We were already in art in Toronto. And over that period of time, we have maybe 4 or 5 disgruntled customers. Our customer service is, I don't think I've ever seen a business that has carried on such great customer service as we have. But we've given more than anybody I've ever known. I give everything I can to people.
Right.
And I mean, I have a girl, as a matter of fact, she's just actually starting to do my work out of Berlin and London, Ontario.
When you say do your work, she's selling your work?
Yeah, she wants to become a promoter of me for me, and she could do the job well. Well, she's an actual artist. And I said, well, in the meantime, I could be working with you on your art. She said, no. And there's some real honor here. She said, no, I'll absorb that through osmosis, right? Yeah. But I want to do this for you. And it's been really, really interesting to see that. And there's some real honesty there with that. And she's actually developing a comic strip, which is the Wizard of Art.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, how I became the wizard, right?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
When that's ready, I would love to see that.
It's neat stuff. And it's funny. The wizard. We were talking way back when, and I just realized over the last year when I titled my book,
Yeah,
"The Wizard of Art," and I started to think after I did the magic bus picture was the one that really felt like Jim Morrison was talking to me. Jim Morrison was begging me to be in my painting.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
that was only that's only just recently.
About 2 years ago,
yeah.
a year and a half ago. And then I started to realize, wait, I remember when I was a kid, this black and white movie, because we didn't have color TV, and I was watching the Wizard of Oz, and and the witch's castle, and the scenes, and I didn't know those were paintings.
Right.
At the time, I was like, oh my God, I got to paint something like that.
Right.
Right. And was really one of the real sparks that took me into the real physicality of art, where I really wanted to. How do I make you get the sense of drama or bizarreness or whatever?
It's funny because you keep referencing Wizard of Oz, Wizard of Art.
Yeah.
And I don't obviously it's something that you recognize, but it makes so much sense. It may not have been what I would have captured on by looking at your work,
right.
But man, does that make sense, because everything you paint is kind of that sort of world, right? Even your realism stuff. Nick and I, when we first came in here, that's what I was talking about. I love comparing your work where your plain work, your realistic stuff versus the more, and I hope this doesn't come off. But the more cartoony, the Rolling Stones kind of stuff, where the super details are in the faces, but everything else is kind of very sort of animated, right?
Yeah.
Even your realism has this sort of element of that hyper realistic.
It's super realism. I think in Russia they would have called it super realism.
Okay.
I don't know what the term would be, but yeah, it's taking it past. It's taking it past what today's artists want to do. Now, one of the things that's really strange is when you study the Renaissance, if you really start to study the Renaissance, and we see paintings that are these beautiful, deep, glowy ambiance to it, a lot of those paintings they have better ambiance today because they've weathered into that.
Right. They didn't look like that at the time, right?
And when you start to really go into Da Vinci and these colors that they were using were phenomenal colors. But they recognized, I think, over the years, artists have now, they want the ambiance, they want, like I did in this Rum Runners, they want to see that haziness. But I always felt that when I look at something, I'm looking at something through clear eyes. And I think what I did is I actually went the step further. I haven't toned down the ambiance of the painting, where you're taking it down and you're creating more atmosphere than it needs.
Yeah.
Now, when you see my art, an art teacher would sit there and say, or even I had a gallery in Toronto that I actually passed on after a while because he really didn't know how to sell that point.
Mm.
And it was, could you put more air in the painting? Well, I don't want to. I want the black to be black. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And when I see a beautiful color of green, I want the beautiful color of green. We're accustomed to watching, when you watch all of these art lessons, you get take art lessons, they're always trying to calm that down. And that's the mind's eye. The mind's eye, when you look at something that is very, very bright, your eyes are adjusting for it, and your mind is adjusting for that.
Yeah.
It's still right in front of you what you're seeing on my canvas.
Right.
Like the difference in the white sidewall.
Yeah.
It really is that contrast if it's in that situation.
Yeah.
But, some people back off. I'm going to give you something, again, I'll give you stuff that people haven't heard before. Please. Some people the artists have come into me and they've tried to figure out what my signature is, and not my signature is a sign.
I was like,
everybody knows my signature. But the signature of the art piece is a recipe. So, I wanted to tell stories, but I also wanted to, I studied Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill says you should have a mastermind group of people that You get to know them so well.
Yeah.
So what I did is I started to know.
Think big and grow rich.
Think and grow rich.
Think and grow rich. Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is create a recipe that people would recognize as Suchiu art.
Right.
And I chose the weirdest, the most bizarre recipe in the world, which is Salvador Dali.
Mm-hmm.
I love his art. I hate the person. Da Vinci, I love everything about Da Vinci.
Right.
And Norman Rockwell, because I wanted to offer people the love and humor that I never received, I think, as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So those three people became Suchiu. So there's a synergy there that you're recognizing. When you said about the bizarreness of well, you're seeing Salvador Dali come in at the wrong time. To me, very much at the right time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what and I think that it was cool because maybe I consider my art more than most people. Maybe I actually concentrate on defining it more than most people. But
you have a goal, right? And I think that's important. Yeah. And even if the goal, I think a lot of times with artists is they get the idea of, I don't want to lock myself into a, I don't want to have to go. You don't have to, but you at least go somewhere.
Yeah.
Don't just throw shit on a canvas,
Right. Yeah.
And I mean that as a metaphor, not...
Well, you could probably get... Well, who did the crucifix in the urn?
Jesus Christ, yeah.
But...
There's actually along the same veins, and again, any information that I ever pass on is just a lie, made up stories, but I believe there's a painting of an elephant that has shit thrown on it. That's been sold.
Yeah. I guess I should unplug that.
And now time's up.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Now we go to England.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because as we were talking there, I remember the part where we got cut off earlier. You were saying the different levels of you, right? So you were talking about when you're sitting here, when you and I are sitting here, it's Ron. Yeah. When you get to be boss, it's you're
that's Suchiu. When you put me in front of people to talk.
Right. And
right now I'm Suchiu. I actually want Ron to slip into it more now,
right?
Because you know what? I'm older now, and I'm older than most people think. I'm older than you think. And what I want to do now is to really start to share it and pass the torch on. But I mean, I can't pass my torch on. But I'll tell you one thing: I've made a million mistakes, and we have something that we call the Suchiuistic attitude. Suchiu has got to plan how to become adopted by people, how you see my art. I plan that.
Yeah.
At the front of my videos right now, you hear the song from The Wizard of Oz, where they're marching up to the gate.
Right.
And it's in black and white, and then the video turns to color. And what I'm trying to do is pass on how does a brand really start to work? I think, and we also said a while ago about artists that don't want to, that want to do it only for themselves. I can't comprehend why that's important.
Yeah,
that's like having a steak in front of a bunch of starving children. It really is. If you got a really good talent, a really, really good talent, and you know that can go somewhere, get out and just share the hell of them. Yeah. Just give it to everybody. And when you give it to everybody, so much synergy comes flying back at you. I always said, we've given about $1.4 million worth of art and money away. I don't have that. I'm not even ready for retirement. I don't have that kind of money. To give that away, I know that we've probably sold over $20 million worth of art. People can't comprehend that in Canada. Yeah. But it's because we gave it away.
Yeah.
You give it away, you give a dime away, you get $1. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
Not that you should be doing that. That's not paying it forward, right?
Right.
Paying it forward is do it for you just to do it for you.
No, I think it is still paying it forward. I think that part of the conversation is where I think a lot of people get lost. They get lost into this weird internal rhetoric about if you're doing it for good, then you don't expect anything back. Well, you're not going out expecting, I'm not giving you, to use you as the example, you're not giving away the painting so that next week they're going to come in and write you a check for $20,000. You're giving away the painting because that's part of who you are as a human. Sure. And being that person as a human, as you're walking through life, will bring, I hate this stupid law of attraction secret shit, But that stuff goes around because there's some facts to it. And one of the facts is, if you're a decent human being, people fucking recognize that really quickly. And it's. I mean, through my experience with this, we're seeing a lot. Or I'm seeing a lot of that come my way, and it's overwhelming. Just the amount of that sort of gratitude you're almost thrust into having this gratitude, because every time I turn around, it's like, even like, for example, by the time this airs, we would have already done Montebello Rock Fest. But even just doing this, we had less than 2 weeks to figure this out, and I had people dip into their own pocket and just go like, I got nothing to promote, here, go. That. I didn't make friends so that they could hand me cash. I just went out and made friends, and at some point they went, we like what you're doing.
And when they see you need it,
they're
there for you. It's always been there like that. It's never been, and that's a very fortunate thing that I was saying about my mother dying. Colleen met her once, and that day she took me aside, which she never did in my life, and she said, I feel strange. It's just a weird thing. I feel strange. And she said, at least I know I've taught you good and bad and what right and wrong. And she said, your art, you will be known for your art. I mean, I don't know
your
why
mom said that.
I don't know why she would say that.
Well,
she said, but you know what it is? Well, she said, but it's not for you. It's for the millions of people out there to have. You're supposed to change their life in some way. A musician, if you don't think you're going to get out there and change somebody's life, my God, look at Leonard Cohen. I worship Leonard Cohen stuff, and it's changed me. The Beatles have changed me, and those guys changed me. Cat Stevens was huge for me. Cat Stevens was a father I never had. I mean, he was the same age as me almost, but what I was learning through that, whether it be right or wrong or good and bad, I can take the good out of it. I can use it for me, and I can make sure that I'm kind of helping people, and it's just helping somebody's life.
And I think it's coming from a place like I was super resentful for a long time. Only within the last 5 years got to be like any sort of human being.
Right.
And I think for a lot of artists, because I think the story is so similar, coming from backgrounds where you don't necessarily have the guidance through all that. And don't get me wrong, I don't begrudge that to anybody. I don't think it's a better path for anyone.
Yeah.
But if that is the path that you're sort of like thrust upon and you're sort of forced to figure it out on your own, if you can learn to tuck away the anger, that's going to be a major question as to whether or not you make it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the world today is a little tough like that.
It does.
It's not as easy as it was to tuck away the anger. I noticed that with people. I noticed that I'm falling into the trap of the bullying.
Yeah.
And I hate myself when I do that.
Yeah.
That's just something. And I sit there and say, God, I can't believe I just tripped in that rut again.
Yeah.
I fell in that ditch.
Yeah. Same stupid thing you said, I'm not going to waste my time with anymore, and you did it.
Yeah.
It's funny because bringing up that topic, and it's apropos that it's come up just sort of like little bits and pieces. One of the things I've been thinking about lately with politics, and especially because of who the president of the United States is, and because of how politics works right now, it almost seems to me like, and I don't think I'm making some brilliant statement here, but it almost seems to me like right now politics has replaced entertainment.
Oh, it has for me. I don't watch TV.
But I think that's
But I watch the best reality TV show in the world, and that's called The Trump Bowl.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And he was right. He's great at getting ratings. I watched The Apprentice because I thought it was, but that's what it is. Yeah. I think more than, and I mean, look, people are going to get pissed off because we're talking about politics, and I mean, quite frankly, I don't fucking care. But really, I think what you see from Trump more than anything is that he's really good at what he says he's really good at, and the only thing he's ever said he's good at is marketing. Yeah. And he's better at that than anybody because he can get his name in front of anything, no matter what piece of garbage it's slapped on.
So he's a car salesman.
Yeah,
the
best one in the world.
The one that nobody. It's the politics don't bother me. It's the fact that it does come down this far. It comes down to us. It doesn't stay up there. It comes down to us, and it starts to. It's like wearing a sweater in the rain, right? All of a sudden, oh my God, this is getting itchy, and I can't stand it. Well, this is what's happening. I think and that's why I said I fell into that, and because I do watch it, and the reason I watch it is I got so many great friends that are Americans that are sitting there going, guys, sorry if you like Trump, but if you can't have a person like that running the world, and he doesn't run the United States. He's running the world. Yeah. So let's get right off that one.
Well, the one part that really bothers me when I hear about this is what the big argument for him. Whether this is an accurate portrayal or not doesn't really matter for the point that I'm trying to make. But his supporters are always talking about what a great business person he is, and my first reaction is like, but even if he's the greatest business person in the world, I go through life every single day, and I'm a business person. And the business stuff that he claims to be good at is the least important part of everything else that happens all day long.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the kind of person that you want in charge. It's just personal opinion, obviously.
I find even in arguably when artists don't want to be business people.
Right.
And I tell them, I set out here almost 30 years ago saying that I want to be 10% a business person, 90% an artist.
How'd that work out for you?
It's never changed. It's always been the opposite.
Yeah.
I do a painting. If I get a half a day to a day in, I am so happy. That's 20% of my week. If I got 20% of my week into a painting, my God, you guys would be blown away. Yeah. I think it was Rembrandt, or I can't remember who said it, but if you knew how hard I had to work to get to this,
right.
You wouldn't be so impressed, And if I could put the hours in, like if I could actually paint, 4 hours a day, if anybody's really rich out there and wants to support somebody right now, let me paint.
Split up the funding, would you?
Give me some money so I could just sit there and paint.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. Suchiu would be on the top of the world as far as I'm concerned.
How much time do you get in?
I don't. I get in. Well, we got Ronstock coming up right now, so the last 3 weeks I've actually gotten so far that I actually stretched the canvas for my next painting. It's taken me 3 weeks. That painting should be done now. It can't be done. I got too smart. I designed custom frames. I did this. I did marketing, and I love it. It's all a blank canvas. I do my own video work. When you see my stuff. It's all blank canvas stuff. It's all creative stuff.
How long does something like this take?
That one, I'd say 4 or 5 weeks. And these are the fun parts now on my Facebook, RonaldSuchiu.com.
Yeah.
Or Ronald Suchiu Facebook. I actually do high speed. This one I did a high speed. I showed people every paint stroke of what I did.
Oh, that's great.
So I actually did, I had the camera running. And I painted the painting right in front of you, and I did it in layers, so people got to understand the layers. And that was awesome. And then I sped it up 20 times.
Yeah.
And that was, I think it was.
So when you say it takes
200 hours, maybe, or 150 hours
at the canvas.
Yeah. Wow. Oh no.
Okay.
At the canvas, but also designing.
Right.
There's something I do that very few artists do is I compose, and I compose my piece to the point where. When I put it on canvas, I'm maybe a bit of a nutcase because of it. If that wheel is 1/8 of an inch out of where I actually designed it to be, I'm not happy about that.
Really?
I think Alex Colville was the same way as that too. Is I get freaky like that, and
that would explain the detail that's in your work then.
Well, aesthetic balance to me is right to the nines. You really have to have perfect balance as far as I'm concerned. I did a painting here where the subject is all off on the left-hand side. How the heck are you going to balance it? Yeah. A lot of my paintings do that.
Yeah.
So the aesthetic balance, once I've achieved that, then, and that can take, with George Lucas, it was the only painting I've ever spent, if you're going to have a masterpiece, there's one qualification you have to have is that you worked only on that painting for 1 year.
Oh, yeah?
And Lucas is the only one that I could ever call a masterpiece because I worked on it for a year and 3 days. A year and 3 days. But that was 3 months of designing. That was a month of negotiating with Lucasfilm,
right?
Making sure all the contracts are put together. Right. That was making sure that
have you met him face to face?
No.
Oh, okay.
but it's enough for me to. I don't like meeting my heroes. I've met a couple so far.
You never want to meet your heroes in case you get disappointed.
Yeah. Well, the one I met David Suzuki. I don't feel quite about David Suzuki as I did once upon a time.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because he's not superhuman.
Because he's a human being. Once you meet him,
and I've done that several times. Where it's like, okay, I can see why people do things with me now too, because some people think I'm famous.
Yeah.
And I can see why they do it with me. And
do you get a lot of that? Too. Do you get a lot of that?
Quite. Yeah. Actually, the most obvious ones is when I was with David Suzuki twice. Once in Toronto, and he invited us to the 20th anniversary of the Roots company. They're very good buddies with Dan Aykroyd and stuff. And we were standing in line. David saw us standing in line, Colleen and I, and he thought, well, I'll go out and I'll join them. He actually stood in line with me all the way through, and people recognized me and him. It was just right 200 miles away from home, and some guys, is that famous artist Ron Suchiu?
It's got to be a good one.
And it happened here in Windsor at the airport. Some guy walked up there. He just started chattering.
That's funny.
Ron, how you doing? How's your family? Blah, 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 blah. The guy walked away, and David says, wow, you got some pretty good friends. I don't know who that guy was.
That's hilarious.
And David started there going,
that's funny. Anyway. That's really funny. Ron, honestly, and I said this earlier, I don't know if it's going to make I could probably sit here for the next week and a half talk to you, but I think we're coming to a point where we're about the end of the show. But man, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it, folks. If you are a fan of Mr. Ron Suchiu and you happen to have, come in contact with him, or maybe you own one of his paintings, let us know. Make a comment down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, and of course, hit subscribe and come back here often and see what we have for you. Speaking of what we have for you, you can always check out one of these videos here. They're our performance videos and our interviews, and hopefully you will find some other stuff that you dig. All right, we will be back next week with another interview for you, and of course, on Friday, we've got that performance video, so make sure you stop in and check that out. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.